Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media MegaCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you. Let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. Now, if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also, keep in mind that if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you. So throughout today's MegaCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all of your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentation. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up on our tour, there are going to be lots of cool aha moments in the MegaCast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's MegaCast will automatically get added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the Handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes we will be giving away throughout the MegaCast today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. You do need to be in attendance here live at the webinar in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the MegaCast today. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, hey, if you're not sure what those are, no problem. You can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click into the Handouts section, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember here today is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's MegaCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all the questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about winning, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the MegaCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content right away after we wrap, you want to jump right in, make sure that you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and to grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected after we wrap today. Now, both you and your coworker, your friend, could win a prize, and we actually hold those drawings every month. So be sure you refer somebody awesome before you head out today. It could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your Handouts tab and fill out the application. Then the Actual Tech crew will match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys or test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you will learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, how to prevent and recover. The site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. So go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books are going to work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and they are completely free, super easy. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the Handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in, so let's get rolling.
Thanks so much, Jess. Hello and welcome to everyone out there in the MegaCast world. Thank you so much to everyone in the Actual Tech Media audience for joining us on the MegaCast today. The topic is building a data strategy that accelerates the business. I want to give a special thanks to our expert presenters on the event today from Quantum, Rubrik, Elation, Elastic, and Click. We've got an awesome MegaCast event lined up for you here today. I should mention my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm one of the moderators on the MegaCast today. Of course, you already met Jess Steinbach, and Mr. Scott Becker may also be joining me as well. Jess mentioned the amazing lineup of prizes. This is a MegaCast. We always have a mega lineup of prizes, I like to say. Today is no different. We've got 4 Apple iPhone 14 Pluses to be given out as our grand prizes. And if that wasn't enough, we've got Amazon $300 gift cards that we'll be giving out after each of the 5 sessions on the MegaCast. And with that, let's kick off today's Data and Analytics MegaCast with an expert keynote presentation. Welcome to Philip Russum. Let's bring up our cameras. I've got Philip here, and here we go.
I'm excited now to be joined by Mr. Philip Russum. He is an independent industry analyst. He's worked at leading IT analyst firms such as Gartner, TDWI, and Forrester. His analysis focuses on data and analytics, and he's a real expert in this field. We've had Philip on numerous podcasts and interviews in the past. And so, Philip, it's a pleasure to have you back on and chat with you today about building a data strategy that accelerates the business. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, David, and I look forward to talking about data strategy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first question I just want to kick it off with, and that is, when an enterprise wants to create a data strategy, where do they start?
Yeah. Well, my standard recommendation is that you should start with the ending. In other words, you should have a vision that looks into the future, where you look and say, what does our enterprise really need in particular? Not so much today, but what are we going to need in 2 years, 3 years, some kind of time frame like that? And what are the goals for the business at that point? And then you work back from business goals and work into IT goals. How can IT support these new customer bases we want to develop? We want to go into a new market. How can IT support kind of the sales and marketing, as well as research and development for new products for that market? Those kind of questions. So, a lot of people think that data strategy is purely about technology issues, but you can tell from my answer that I think that the technology approach for your data strategy really should be enlightened by having some sort of business direction first and foremost.
That's very wise advice. Start with the ending in mind. Focus on the business. It's not just all about the technology. I know we in the technology organization tend to get focused on the hot new technology that's going to solve everything, but we really need to focus on the business challenges. And so, talking about data strategy, maybe you could help us just with a definition. How do you define a data strategy?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Very good question. And for different people, the data strategy can take different forms, and it may have a curious mix of both business and technology goals. That would be normal for a data strategy. So again, it's not purely about technology; it's got business built in there as well. So keep that in mind as you develop a strategy. But I think a related question that a lot of people ask me is, how do we express what we're thinking of in terms of a data strategy? How do we start talking it up within my company? Because you can't just put a team together and the team in isolation creates a strategy. a data strategy is going to affect an enterprise very broadly. It's going to hit a lot of departments and business units, hit a lot of individual people, both business and technology people, maybe your customers and partners also. So you need to start thinking about your data strategy and defining it so that people can see the breadth of it. And also, I mentioned a moment ago, how do you talk it up within your enterprise? Because you can't just go do the data strategy. You have to have people supporting you. You'll need budgets. So you need people who control budgets to contribute parts of their budgets. You'll need your peers on board. You'll have to come to agreement and consensus. And also, you simply need permission from management. So you need to be able to communicate what you're thinking to all these people. Now, let's come back to your real question. How do we start defining the strategy? I think some old school, kind of old fashioned things are still very appropriate today. For example, a planning document, or a project plan. These are things that are very useful today. The catch is that in the past, we'd come up with those documents and they'd be set in stone. Nowadays, project plans tend to be living documents. They evolve as the project moves forward. And especially with the data strategy, we're going to be doing things we haven't done before. We may be doing practices we haven't done before, like advanced analytics and data science. Or you may be using technologies you haven't used before, in particular cloud. Or maybe you're trying to learn machine learning and artificial intelligence. So it's hard to anticipate all the requirements and things of that nature. So you really need a project plan, some kind of planning document similar to that. And it will define the project. But expect the strategy to evolve, and any projects based on it, expect that to evolve over time. So your planning documents need to be living documents.
Very smart. Yeah, I like that. We're starting off a big project here around our data strategy. It's smart to document it, but also realize that it's going to change over time. Now, here's the exciting part. What about tools? You've got this data strategy. What kind of tools, what kind of platforms would it require?
Yeah, tools and tools for data management, also tools for data platforms like databases and stuff. New things like new approaches to storage, especially on cloud. All those things are really exciting. And there's a lot of great advancements going on in the tool community. And so in a moment, I'll give you kind of a list, and you'll see it's a long one. But as we talk about tools and platforms, realize these come from many sources nowadays. So there's a very large vendor community that continues to upgrade older tools as well as build brand new ones. We also have the open source community creating all kinds of data management and storage-oriented approaches that would be useful for your strategy. And then in some organizations, they have the resources where they can actually build their own tools. So that's exciting as well. So these tools can come from a wide variety of sources. But the diversity of these tools tends to boil down into three areas. So the first area that I always talk about is data integration tools, and tools that are often used hand in hand alongside data integration tools. So first of all, data integration can take many forms, from old-fashioned ETL and ELT to data synchronization, replication. There's a variety of data integration tools that your data strategy may need. The more diverse your strategy in terms of data we're trying to collect, use cases we're trying to support, the more diverse your tool set will be. But it's not just data integration tools. Those are often used hand in hand with data quality tools, metadata management, master data management, and so forth down the list. So there's this whole group of tools. Nowadays, we're trying to pull them together under the rubric of data fabric. So the data management tools for the fabric, that's quite a list in its own. But, we also have to persist data on disk. So data storage kicks in. Nowadays, the trend is definitely towards cloud-based storage that's using some sort of object model as the primary way to interface with storage. And of course, there are all kinds of database management systems, DBMSs. The older brands are still with us. They've upgraded. They're more relevant than ever. There's also a lot of new brands for database management systems. So all those that are storage-oriented tend to make the second category. And then, of course, the third category for your tool portfolio would be more end-user type tools that are used to consume the data that's being delivered as part of your strategy. And the people consuming the data, they range from business people who are reading business reports and looking at their business dashboards. Maybe they're using self-service tools today, all the way up to really complicated, more technical users like the data scientist who are doing machine learning and artificial intelligence quite often to support predictive analytics. So you put it together, it's a very long list of tools, and it's one heck of a very large, it's a very large portfolio, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a long list of tools. Do you define this as an architecture? Is that what that is, or how do you see it?
Yeah, excellent. Excellent question. You notice I was careful to use the word software portfolio because really, as I was just describing it, it's a list of tools. In a true architecture, the difference would be that we're more concerned with relationships among tools and platforms. And that's what an architecture is. It's something that has many components in it, and the components relate to each other and quite often interoperate through some sort of design, some sort of pattern that has been designed. And so there's a difference between a portfolio of tools and an architecture of tools where the tools do interoperate. A classic example of interoperability, I've been in data warehousing forever. What you want to do there is be sure that your ETL tool can call your data quality tool and vice versa. Quite often you want to have combinations of tools that are able to call each other and pass data among themselves. And of course, every tool you've got can't even get to first base without lots of metadata management. So all tools have to be able to interface at the metadata layer and so forth. So those are common examples of how a tool portfolio will start coming together through interactions and interoperability to constitute a true architecture. But before we leave that one, don't forget architecture. There's never one architecture. Quite often there are multiple architectures at different layers of the technology stack. So I was just describing an architecture at the data integration level. Some people don't even realize you need an architecture for data integration. A more common thing that falls under the rubric of data architecture would be where the data itself. So you have lots of your data strategy, no matter what its goals are, it's going to generate lots of data sets as well as read from established data sets. So questions of how do these data sets relate? Because, a lot of them have shared data modeling and shared data elements. So is there some sharing involved there? Many of them are in kind of they're in a data flow pattern where downstream data sets depend on the upstream. And so architecture is really about relationships among multiple things there. And you can have architecture at the data integration level, the data storage level. If you're really doing it well, you'll have an architecture for reporting and dashboards and so forth down the line.
Wow, Philip, you've given us so much to think about here and so much wise advice. I'm afraid we're running out of time here in our keynote interview. We've got to kick off the MegaCast, but I look forward to having you back on future events and learning more from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to see you again, David.
All right, I've just brought up our first poll here of the event. The question on the screen is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating IT solutions at your company, specifically around data and analytics type solutions? We want to get your feedback on this poll. And right after this, I promise, I'm going to introduce you to our first expert presenter from Quantum. So I'll give you just a few seconds here to respond to this poll. This is an important question, and the question is basically around when are you going to take action on the types of solutions that you're learning about on the MegaCast today. All right, thank you to everyone who responded to the poll. It's now time to bring in our first presenter here. I'm excited to welcome Mr. Eric Bazier, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Quantum. Hey, Eric, it's great to have you on. I'll hand it off to you. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, and great to be back on another one of these MegaCasts, I guess it is today. So, and when we saw the topic, we just think this topic is so interesting because we're talking about building a data strategy for your business, and I think it's a really interesting topic, and it's really at the heart of what we do as a company. And it's our tagline is shown here on the slide: "Your difference is in your data." And what I want to talk about today is really about data, about the future of data. And I'll leave you with a couple of different models you can be thinking about for kind of how to think about your data strategy. This is really the abstract for my short presentation, and I've heard different people refer to data as the new oil. Companies that can leverage data, that can unlock the value in their data, are going to be the organizations that win in their fields in this century. And I think that's been proven already. I think we've seen it. One of the interesting things I've seen recently amongst our customer base is a new role that's been created within IT called a data architect, right? So it's not a storage architect. It's not a backup administrator or a data protection architect. It's actually a data architect, because data-driven organizations are starting to think about how their data kind of lives across its life cycle, where it needs to be, how they govern it, things like data sovereignty and more, and how to leverage it for building new products and creating new business models. Now, I want to talk about data, and that's what we'll spend a lot of time on, because I think this is where this leads to the right thinking around a strategy. Most data is unstructured, and we're going to unpack that. Most of it's videos, it's images, it's different types of files and objects. It's expected, and this is a data point from IDC research, that they expect unstructured data will more than double over the next 5 years. And all the different industry analysts have projections for this. So for those in the audience here, as you're thinking about your data strategy, I mean, that's the key consideration, right? The amount of unstructured data you're going to be managing will double in the next 5 years. What does that mean for your data strategy? There's also this interesting, I think there's a growing consensus in the industry that not all data is going to go to the public cloud. Not all workloads are going to run in the public cloud. The future is cloud also. And we're kind of seeing this, I think, a little bit recently, where the mindset of infrastructure decision makers is not always cloud first. And it certainly is not cloud only. It's okay, it's hybrid cloud. How do I think about that? What workloads should run in the cloud? Things like that. And then I'll leave you with just a model for how to think about the next era of data. So when we talk about a data strategy, let's start here. Today's products are built with data. We have customers that work in, genome sequencing, and we have customers that have actually helped to build the COVID-19 vaccine. That vaccine was built with data. Autonomous vehicles and even cars are built with data. And many, not only products, but many companies run on data, and that's true in finance, it's true in retail. Now, most of that data is unstructured. And the thing that's interesting from a data strategy perspective is unstructured data is the least understood. I think people have a very good understanding of structured data, and they use it every day. It's critical to their business. It's rows and columns of numbers. You can query it. That problem's been solved. Unstructured data is very different. It's opaque. People have massive amounts of it, but they don't know, for example, what's inside a video file. Are there objects in there that I could, use in different ways? It's massive. We'll talk more about that. It's dynamic, meaning it doesn't stay in one place for its whole life. And I'm finding this really interesting growing awareness amongst our customers that they are going to keep this data for decades. And I don't mean like retain it or keep it in a vault. They're going to want to reuse it potentially for decades. And as I said, we believe that organizations that can derive the most value from this data are going to win in their fields. They're going to outperform. And as I said, this unstructured data, it's expected it's going to more than double over the next 5 years. This is a chart that's based on some old IDC research, but it basically shows the scale of unstructured data growth and what's expected over the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. And when we talk to many of our enterprise customers, most of this data is stored on systems that were designed more than 20 years ago. The most popular file and object storage systems were designed either in the 90s or in the early 2000s. Those are the most popular by far. Now, those systems are starting to have a bunch of issues around performance, scale, networking challenges. And I think a lot of the I would say a lot of the current and upcoming applications, including AI and machine learning, data analytics, business intelligence, some of the stuff that was talked about earlier, they require much faster performance, much larger scale. And this idea of this cloud also future, I think this has created a really crucial pivot point for many data-driven organizations around the world. And I think this is it's a good chart to show visually what's in front of us as an industry. So what is driving that unstructured data growth? Let's just unpack that a little bit. And this is based on a combination of research from a number of different industry analysts. It's based on some of our own internal research. But if you look at the biggest workloads driving unstructured data growth, the two biggest are enterprise video. And it's video used for surveillance and physical security, right? So this is data generated by video surveillance cameras. And it's also video for entertainment and communications purposes. And I think this is interesting because in both of these, video is by far the biggest source of unstructured data, right? And video surveillance data is not just used for loss prevention. We recently did a pretty interesting announcement where we announced a partnership with a company called Wait Time Software that uses video surveillance data to do real-time crowd intelligence. So they have clients that are big stadiums and airports and convention centers and malls and all that kind of stuff. And they're actually using the data, they're analyzing the video surveillance data to help with things like queue management, right? Or providing for a better guest experience. So it's a really good example of a way that this data is kind of enriched. Then you go into images and imagery. This could be from, satellites, life sciences, earth sciences, microscopes, et cetera, backup and recovery. And then, of course, AI, machine learning, and data analytics. And this is one that I think is really just at the very beginnings, especially in terms of enterprise use. That's going to create a huge amount of data. And almost all of it is unstructured. Actually, most forms of AI and machine learning and deep learning, you're using video and imagery at some point as part of that process. So these are some of the workloads that we think about, and I think as we're thinking about the data strategy here, step one might be understand the makeup of your data. Understand the makeup of what's driving this data, and then start to form a plan around it. And transitioning, what binds all of those data sets together is that they have a workflow in a sense, and workflow is a term that we've used it's very, very common in the media and entertainment industry in terms of how a movie gets made. But what we're seeing is developing and training AI models or deep learning. It actually has a pretty similar workflow, and it goes a little bit of something like this. And you could think of it almost like a factory. And I like that analogy. You have data that's generated, raw data that's generated almost always by a device. This is where we're going. I mean, and it could be a camera, it could be a IoT sensor or something like that. But think about that as your raw materials. That data is ingested into a storage system, and it goes through the work in process phase where that data is transformed into some type of a finished product, right? I'll give an example. We've got a customer over in France that uses satellite data to study the planet, right? Study the effects of deforestation and global warming. They capture these high-res satellite images, and then they have analysts that look at those images, they compare it, and they produce some output. You know, they produce some report for the government or something. And then when they're done, it goes into finished goods. And often over the years, when people talk about finished goods, they might use a term like data archive, or maybe they're retaining data. But I like the term finished goods a little better, because what you're doing is if you're not actively working on data, you're putting it somewhere that is, you know, you can keep it for a long period of time. But just like in other factories, I mean, you may want to bring that back in and do some more work on it. And that's certainly true with AI and machine learning. Now, what we think in the world of data storage, which is what we do, you can see some of the characteristics at each stage, which are very different. You know, in the work in process stage, this is really high performance storage. You have a lot of highly paid people at the company that need instant access to that data because they rely on it to produce the products, to do their jobs. And this is where, from a model perspective or like a strategy, this is where we start to do AI-driven data enrichment. And what I mean by data enrichment is, you know, we start to add metadata to these files so that they're more valuable, and then we can use that to kind of move the data over time. Now, the finished goods side of things is a very different set of characteristics that are needed. Very low cost, because this might be data that's kept for decades. Huge scale. It's estimated, I saw an industry analyst report earlier this week that most enterprises will have about 6 times inactive data versus their active data at any given time, right? In other words, that finished goods side of things, the capacity might be 6 times larger than their work in process data. And because of that, it needs to be sustainable, green. Cyber resiliency, I think, is something across this whole stack. And it's our belief that, you know, the architectures used here are kind of similar, but the future of the high performance storage is going to be storage, and that's going to accelerate over the next 5 years. Really, the future of the long-term data archiving is going to be where you know, hard drive technology and even tape technology plays a role before DNA becomes, before storing data on DNA becomes really commercialized. So as we think about some considerations for building this data strategy, and we think about this data, I'd summarize it a little bit here. The first is it's exponentially larger in scale. So we already have customers that have exabytes of data. I may have, on one of these other megacasts, I may have shared a story about one of our customers is a car manufacturer, and they've been in business over 100 years or close to 100 years. And before they started to develop driver assistance technology, they might have had less than a petabyte of data for the whole company, right? And in about 2 years of just working to develop driver assistance technology in their vehicles, this isn't even fully autonomous driving yet, just that initiative generated over an exabyte of data. So this data is exponentially larger. It's not going to stay in one place. And that's a key thing. I think when I talk to a couple of data architects, one of the key things they're thinking about is how to move data between edge, core, cloud, where to process it, where to keep it for a long period of time. Should that be in the cloud? Should that be on premise? It's going to be used for decades. And I've highlighted the word used here because I want to emphasize this is, as you think about your data strategy, it's not data that's going to be archived for decades or protected for decades. It's going to be used for decades. And I think this is a really interesting emerging trend, really like this century, in a sense, that the stuff will be brought back and repurposed, reused, lots of examples of that. And it's the least understood, and this is where, on the least understood piece, this is where I wanted to make a comment about what we're doing and what some of our clients are doing around using AI, and I think machine learning is kind of overused, but basically using AI toolkits to be able to enrich file and object data. So that might be adding more metadata to it, right? Really at the core of it, what you're doing is you're adding more metadata tags to these files so that you can find them more quickly, so that you can understand what you have, so that you can query this data more quickly and use it in different ways. And I think really a lot of times when people talk about AI, especially with file and object data, really what they're doing is they're adding more metadata to the files to enrich it. And I think I see a lot of that's what I see a lot of the solution to this being in the next 5 to 10 years. So I'll leave you with this sort of model to think about for the next era of data. This pyramid is a pretty classic view of what every industry analyst believes the next era of data is going to look like. Different estimates would say up to 60% of all the data that's going to be stored will be inactive. So the bottom of the pyramid, you will have a lot more inactive data at any given time than you have active data or hot data. And we think the future of the hot data is all flash. That's going to be all flash file and object storage. And I say file and object because we're focused here on unstructured data. Everything's erasure coded, and that's common across both. So that's really the architecture of the future you should be looking for, is storage that's, everything's erasure coded, massively scalable. For cyber resilience, you've got instant snapshots kind of across the board, right? You're sort of cyber resilient top to bottom. And when you think about a storage platform for that active data, it's cloud also, right? You need a platform that runs in the cloud. You need a platform that runs on premise. You don't want to make trade-offs or compromises to do that. And one that has the ability to move data between those platforms, right? Now, our vision is to be able to use that enriched metadata to be able to do policy-based data movement. I think that's going to be something that's going to become a lot more common. If this file is a MP4 file that has not been touched in 90 days, move it here. Move it to this other spot. And then on the cold data side, again, it's similar, but we think the future of cold data storage is object storage. For the hot data, a lot of times there's human beings interacting with the files every day, so that's where file storage is really going to continue to play a role. I think object, certainly for long-term data archiving, is a great way to store data, and it makes it really easy to go back and enrich those objects with more metadata. So we think the future there is object storage. It's, again, erasure coded. Geo-spread, you want that protection. That might be on-prem, that might be in cloud as well. And I think this is a really good kind of high-level model to think about. So we have a big announcement actually coming in the next few weeks around this topic. It was one of the reasons we were excited about signing up for the data strategy session today. And so if you would like to learn more, you can go to quantum.com/jointhefuture, do a quick sign up, and there will be more news coming in terms of what I've been talking about today in the coming weeks here. So with that, thank you very much, and let's open it up for some questions and take some questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Great presentation. We do have some questions for you coming in, Eric. I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone out there in the audience. We want to get your feedback on the question on the screen. That is, what additional information would you like about the quantum solution? Technical white papers, pricing, personal demo. Maybe you want to try it out for yourself. We want to get your feedback here. So let's see, a lot of questions coming in. If you have a question for quantum, now's the time to get it in. Let's see, first question, I'll just start with this one, Eric. They're asking, what are some of the ways your customers are using AI and ML today?
Yeah, I'll give you a few examples, and it varies a little bit by industry, but we have a lot of clients that have a lot of video and image data, which is what most of unstructured data is. And when you think about storing, let's say, a huge number of video files, you know maybe like the name of the file, but you don't know what's in it. And what we're seeing a lot of early applications for AI and machine learning would be train a model that can recognize a specific image within a frame of video. So for example, with our customers in sports, they might say, I'm going to train a model, and some of these models exist, especially with celebrity faces and stuff, right? They'll say, I want to train a model, or I have a model that can recognize LeBron James's face when he's in a frame of video. And then I can run this program effectively against my repository of data. I can scan, in a sense, I can scan all my video data, and I can index it, and anytime I see a LeBron James face in a frame of video, tag that video file with a LeBron James tag. So now I can search my repository and say, okay, give me every video clip I have with LeBron James. Okay, you've used an AI image recognition program effectively to kind of like train or to enrich your data. We have customers that are doing speech to text. So really cool application would be for corporate messaging or corporate training. You might have an executive that's speaking in English, and then you're able to use an AI program to transcribe into different languages, or maybe add subtitles in different languages. And we have customers right now that would do that, where you can train a model that would translate into like 5 different languages almost instantly. They're doing up-resing and things like that. So outside of that, I think a lot of the AI and machine learning kind of applications are like simulated machine vision. It's interesting. If you think about teaching a car to drive itself, or if you think about teaching a robot to be able to see, you have to kind of teach it to be able to see effectively. So a lot of video cameras are used in that. A lot of video and image data is used. So those are a few examples.
Excellent. Yeah, so many possibilities. It's just incredible what keeps coming up with AI these days related to data. So another question here, what about data protection and ransomware? How does that fit into the strategy that you're talking about?
I think it's a really good question, and it's really a top pain point and a top priority for many of our customers now. I've recently heard this described as kind of like it's going to be a never-ending battle. And I think where things are evolving to is in kind of like that data factory model. Your data really has to be protected end to end. Even from, in a sense, maybe the moment that raw data is created, you need to make sure you have that protected. Many of the techniques that are being used, it's around, having an immutable copy of your data, things around zero trust architectures, and that's going to continue to evolve. But I think when people think about their data strategy, I think it's critical to also be thinking about data protection from kind of the moment of creation all the way through that, long-term, multi-decade archival step. And I think that's going to be a real challenge. I know there's some other vendors here that will talk a little bit more about that. That's kind of their specialty, but certainly a top challenge over the next number of decades, I'm sure, as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's see. It looks like we're starting to run out of time here in our presentation slide, I'm afraid, Eric. There's still, I see 12 plus more questions for you there in the electronic queue. We're not going to have time for. Maybe you can get back to those folks electronically, because there are some great questions in there.
But I'm able to I can just respond in line or something and kind of get them answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. I guess final question for you: what should folks do to get started with Quantum?
Well, if you would like to learn more about anything I've talked about, go to quantum.com. That's a great place to start. In our solutions area, you can find more about what I've talked about today. Certainly go to quantum.com/jointhefuture if you want to learn a little bit more specifically about what we're announcing soon. And if you are a Quantum customer, if you work with a reseller VAR or if you have a quantum representative, reach out to them, and we'd love to talk with you more about it. And I'm seeing, I mean, some of the questions are great questions. We'd love the opportunity to engage with you more and figure out how we can help you. So.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you to our friends at Quantum. We appreciate your feedback there on the poll. Don't forget about the handouts tab. There's a link to the Quantum website as well for additional information. And with that, it's time now for our first Amazon $300 gift card prize drawing. This is going out to Amber Welpley from Texas. Congratulations. All right. And with that, it's time to move on. Let's keep this MegaCast rolling. I'm excited now to bring in our next expert presenter. Welcome to Danny Page, who is an inside sales engineer at Rubrik. Hey, Danny, thanks for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, take it away. Tell us about Rubrik and how it fits in with the data strategy.
All right. So if you haven't heard of Rubrik before, we are a zero trust data protection and management company. Our focus is protecting you from ransomware via making sure that you've got backups, making sure you've got the ability to do fast recoveries, but understanding the scope and being prepared for cyber recovery. Today, what we'll focus on is that cyber recovery aspect of things. So kind of get into it, like we can level set here and agree that cyber recovery and backup and recovery are not the same thing, right? Everybody does some form of backup, but not everybody has the ability to recover from ransomware if they do get hit. So what we'll focus on is something that's kind of new to the platform related to the ability to do cyber recovery. So we can kind of, as we work more regularly with our customers that are impacted by cyber events, it's become more and more clear that it's critical to have that plan in place to be able to successfully respond, right? When an environment is infiltrated by malware or some type of payload, it's most often unknown until a large-scale event happens, right? Usually that's going to be an encryption event of some kind. So there's no indication for an organization to know how far spread the malware of the encryption is, so they'll have to operate under the assumption that basically everything is bad until they can really investigate. And that delays recovery, right? Recovery is all about something that's happening fast, right? We want to get up as fast as possible. We want as little downtime as possible. So what companies need is a method to quickly detect the impact of the attack, how many machines were encrypted, and this gives them a starting point for that investigation, right? However, encryption is not equal to infection. They're not the same thing. So companies also need a method to identify indicators of compromise and how far they've spread in order to quarantine the machines and prevent reinfection during that recovery. So once the infected machines are quarantined and the victims have been identified and the perpetrators, then the recovery of the victims can happen, right? We can begin with that part. But that is only the recovery part of the story, right? Companies and organizations need the ability to recover the perpetrators into an isolated recovery environment, right? So we can do further and get investigation in these IREs, as we call them, and they can be performed in order to remove the infection and ensure a clean and secure copy of the machines can be restored to production. With all of these steps now accomplished, this can be considered a well-defined plan for recovery, right? But all we know, but we all know that the best laid plans, they require constant practice, they require iteration in order to be successful, and that's why organizations out there, they also need the ability to proactively test these plans and prepare themselves for the worst so that they can mitigate the effects as much as possible. So this is kind of the challenge, right? For the IT folks out there, this line kind of represents a period of time, right? The hard marks are points in time or backup images over time. In the course of a cyber attack, a payload will particularly land on the environment and attempt to go undetected. So its goal is to remain undetected and perform reconnaissance as well as propagate. So this time is referred to as the dwell time. So after a period of time, the payload will launch an encryption event and the ransom will be delivered. So one of the biggest problems that organizations face is, as we kind of discussed earlier, is understanding what point in time to recover from. So it is possible that they have a copy to recover from, but understanding which one is like finding a needle in a haystack. So they also, you can't identify what machines are the perpetrators and which are the victims, right? Perpetrators are the ones that have malware on them. Victims are simply the ones that had an encryption event take place, right? They were maybe adjacent to that malware-infected machine, whatever it may be. So without this understanding, you have to be treated as a perpetrator. Everyone has to be treated as a perpetrator, and no recovery can be done until they've all been proven innocent, right? So according to a 2022 research by the antivirus company Sophos, the median dwell time for a ransomware attack is about 11 days. So this is plenty of time for the malware to spread and gather valuable data about the environment. Right? We don't know how far back we need to go. We've got an 11-day dwell time. On average, it could be more. So how do we know when we need to get to stage 2, stage 3, so that we can commence with that cyber recovery? So kind of to summarize in that previous slide, current tooling means that recovery from a cyber attack it's complex, it's slow, it's error prone because it's really just a bunch of manual processes, and it's difficult to test, right? So without readdressing everything, you can't do this without taking down production. So let's take a look at how some of those challenges surface in a typical attack. So the attack occurs, and you typically find out about it when someone calls the help desk because they can't access their files. So perhaps the first thing you know about is when you see the ransom note in one of your file shares. Either way, as soon as this is discovered, the security team, they'll spring into action. The first step is to take down production to prevent any further malicious activity while they establish exactly what has happened, right? So with production down, IT ops will be scrambling to identify a safe recovery point. So you need an isolated recovery environment. You'll need to manually configure compute, network, storage in a way that isolates anything that's recovered, just in case the malware is present in the backups that you're about to restore. So speaking of backups, you now need to identify when the attacker was first in your environment so you can recover to a point prior. You might have some clues from other systems, but realistically, this is a guessing game. Select a point in time, restore the systems from backup. I hope you don't need to have tapes and sent back to a site. That just going to make things slower. So once the restore operation is completed, run whatever checks you need to do in order to ensure a clean recovery point. Was the recovery point that you selected safe to push back to production? If so, great. Realistically, you'll likely need to repeat this process a number of times before you can find a safe recovery point. All this time, operations are down, so you're non-operational. Right? So once you identify that safe recovery point, can you proceed to recover to production, assuming that SecOps have completed their investigation and giving you the all clear on everything? And that's just for one system, right? Realistically, there's going to be many systems that need to repeat this. So you're in this loop, which is going to take days, if not weeks, to be able to help you get back up and running. So how do we continue to solve for this, right? We need to be able to recover to production. We need to be able to find clean recovery points. What's kind of the indicator that we can solve for this, right? So dependent on your processes, your risk appetite, and exactly what kind of attack you're responding to, cyber recovery, Rubrik Cyber Recovery also offers another option. When you absolutely positively need to restore your business as quickly as possible, but your security team wants to complete their investigation with more certainty, you can essentially select a recovery point that is a recommended by ransomware investigation or threat hunting feature within the Rubrik software. Using this, the recovery can take place and your business is back up and running in pretty much no time. At the same time, anything that you know is a bad snapshot, which you may have been able to quarantine via threat containment if you're using it, that can be spun up in a secure, isolated recovery environment, or an IRE. So the security ops team can then bring their tooling to bear to identify which hosts were targets, the exact strain of the malware, if this indeed was the initial entry point of the attacks, etc. If they deem it to be necessary, then they can test manual cleanup steps, and that might be required to get a fully clean and recovered production environment. So, and pass these over to IT ops for action, right? Once you figure some things out. Once this is done, the IRE has served its purpose, and it can be disposed of. So we've got a lot of different steps that we need to be able to take, right? But this is going to speed things up drastically in terms of that manual process that you have to go through, right? Attack detected by ransomware investigation. We restore the ones we know are good. We conduct forensics and cleanup on the ones we think are bad. And then we roll those cleanup steps into production. After that, we discard that isolated recovery environment so that we can get back up and operational. So to kind of summarize this once again, Rubrik Cyber Recovery gives you new capabilities to recover quickly, to recover with confidence from any cyber attack. It enables you to perform security assessments easily, whether in response to an active threat or as part of that cyber preparedness exercise that you're doing to make sure that you're good to go in the event that something bad does happen. And then finally, it enables you to conduct forensic investigations in parallel to a recovery. And this helps you get back up and running quickly while the security ops team are able to do their work to guarantee safety within the environment. So competence leads to competence. Customers cannot expect to confidently recover in the wake of a cyber event if they've not put in the hard work to prepare, test, validate the recovery process. So cyber recovery makes testing, validation, and competence building an easy process. So we can predefine recovery plans, recover workloads regularly without production impact, and these tests will be tracked historically and can be compared over time to kind of prove that we're consistent in our plans and that we've made improvements to them if there's maybe some holes that we might have missed. So to kind of walk through how it works with a little look at the interface as well. What we'll do is we'll essentially start a cyber recovery from, say, a completed threat hunt. We've done a threat hunt and determined what we think has malware, which objects, which snapshots. So we can recover those snapshots that don't have those indicators of compromise matches to that production environment. Or if we want to be safe, if we want to just double check ourselves, we can recover it to an isolated recovery environment for validation. We can also do that with ransomware investigation. This is where we're detecting anomalies in encryption, right? So this allows us to not just find the actual threat actors, but the victims themselves, right? Those workloads that have encryption on them but may not contain malware. So what we can do is we can select the points in time to recover into that isolated recovery environment, right? We can go all the way back and say, I don't want to recover anything from after this point in time because I know this to be the edge of my blast radius, essentially. And note the selection criteria here, right? We can decide if we want to recover non-quarantined and non-anomalous snapshots. Maybe we only want to recover anomalous snapshots or quarantined snapshots, or we don't want to consider anything. We're sending everything to the IRE to be able to do forensics. So we can, from here, define that compute environment. A compute environment is going to be the location of the IRE. So this can be a dedicated or a shared resource. And the compute network only consumed while the IRE runs, right? So we can essentially create a temporary environment that we tear down afterwards and utilize for other things that might need compute or network resources after the fact. So after that, we can define the isolated networks. So these are things that need to be predefined within vCenter. Obviously, customers, you are responsible for, say, routing and firewalling between the networks. But this is a great thing because it allows you to set those plans in place beforehand, right? as opposed to, say, having to figure it out on the fly, scrambling, and really, really extending out that recovery effort. So we can then also define the recovery order, right? Especially if we've got dependent virtual machines, dependent applications, databases, web servers, whatever it may be. By default, all VMs are going to be in group 2. You can move those around. We can also configure any pauses required between certain priority groups, right? So if we want to make sure we've got a certain pause in between the recovery effort for that first group, between the first group and the second group, between the second group and that third group, we can configure that as well. And we can configure post-recovery scripts for doing large amounts of jobs at the same time, right? Right now, we can do this either via Bash or PowerShell with the initial release, but there will be more to come as far as support for that. This can be on the VM, or it can be transferred from a Rubrik post-recovery repository. It's kind of up to you there. And you can see, you can input that post-recovery script, have it ready to go, reared and ready to go for that recovery event. And then we confirm those recovery plan details, make sure it's got everything that we want, all the workloads are included that we want to be able to utilize. We can save the recovery plan for future use, right? This is where the whole idea of a blueprint comes into place. We want to make sure we're in a good spot so that we have that recovery plan. And then we can monitor the recovery progress, right? We can kind of go in, notice, see how far along we are, just based off of percentage. See when we're actually completed for any recovery that we might be doing at this time, any recovery plan that we have in place that we're running. Go through, look in more detail at particular jobs while we're monitoring that progress. And then I think probably my favorite is the ability to generate reports. This is going to be very useful in terms of whatever it is that we might need to do, right? So if we need to generate reports for, say, a board who's interested in knowing what our recovery plan is and what the impact might be to the business, the organization, maybe to a city council. Cyber insurers will often ask for things such as this so that they can say, hey, you say you have a recovery plan in place and you say you can provide proof. Can I see that proof? Can I see how you've improved upon it? You know, what things have you put in place to be able to actually make sure that you're in a good spot if something bad does happen? So to summarize then, what Rubrik Cyber Recovery extends on the already existing capability of, say, Rubrik ransomware investigation, threat hunting, threat containment, and that orchestrated application recovery to provide new capabilities to regularly test, regularly validate, and document your cyber recovery playbook. So by leveraging Rubrik's live mount capability, it mitigates the challenges of needing to restore a selected point in time to your DR environment, which allows you to perform investigations much more quickly. And finally, by taking the forensic investigations out of band, you can restore service much more quickly without sacrificing your security posture. So recover more quickly, recover with more confidence with Rubrik Cyber Recovery. And that's all I've got. Any questions? Let's hear them now.
Absolutely, yeah. Great presentation, Danny. This is really cool. Very nicely done job there. We do have some questions for you from the audience. While we take those questions, I've just brought up a poll for everyone out there. We want to get your feedback on this poll. The question on the screen, what additional information would you like about the Rubrik solution? Feel free to select one or multiple options there as they correspond. And we'll just kick off Q&A here. The first question I see, I'm going to go to this one. They're asking about which third-party applications or software are you using for your cyber recovery feature? Danny?
So that would be none. So everything that we utilize is our own software stack. It's all built in-house. It's all built from scratch. That includes our ransomware investigation. That includes threat hunting, orchestrated application recovery. This is all part of the same single interface where you do backup and recoveries, creating plans, doing ransomware investigation and anomaly detection, all going to be happening with Rubrik. Nothing here is bolt-on. It's all going to be native to the platform.
Nice.
Good question.
I like that. Yeah. Another one here, they want to know, does Rubrik provide hardware for the isolated recovery environment?
So we do not provide the hardware, right? That is going to be the customer's responsibility, mostly because that's usually going to be something they're placing their own hypervisor on, right? We need to have that vSphere environment in place to be able to do the recoveries. Our software stack and our hardware, we're basically putting our software, which doesn't use any hypervisors, no third parties, no Microsoft operating systems, nothing like that. And it's just going to be more in sync with whatever hardware that you currently provide, right? So if you've got spare compute, that spare Dell or HP server you've got lying around that you want to be able to utilize, or be able to carve out a single virtual machine to do isolated recoveries. We want something that's kind of more in line with what you're already doing. So it's your responsibility to bring that. We give you the ability to do planning so that you can best utilize those resources.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's going to vary a lot from company to company, I'm sure. Based on needs. Yeah. Here's another one. Is the cyber recovery tool also used for disaster recovery?
Good question. I didn't really even talk much about disaster recovery. Everything that we do focus on is around cyber recovery, so really ransomware, things like that. But yes, if you've got a DR environment, you can put DR plans in place in the event that, say, you lose a particular production environment, right? You can make sure that you've got plans in place so that you can execute over to, say, a replication source and do recoveries from that. So yes, it's a cyber recovery. When we think about that, we think about malicious actors. We think about, ransomware, malware, things of that nature. But what we can also do is put you in a good spot for disaster recovery too. So natural disasters, fires, floods, whatever that may be, you can utilize that same cyber recovery tool for DR or for a ransomware event.
Excellent. All right. Well, I know we're starting to run out of time here in our Q&A slot here. Is what should folks do to get started with Rubrik? I guess is my final question to you, Danny.
Yeah. So, obviously, look at the website, see what it is that you like, see if anything is intriguing to you. From there, I always recommend, especially if you have a preferred vendor that you work with, whether that's a CDW, an AMS, an SHI, whatever that may be, reach out to that person, say, I'm interested in learning more about Rubrik. You can also put in details under the Rubrik website that will get in touch with us pretty fast and get you aligned to the appropriate resource. But however you want to go about it, right? Either that be through the Rubrik website or through your preferred reseller. Both ways are going to be pretty expeditious ways in which to get in touch with us and get aligned with someone to get more info.
Perfect. All right. Well, there's quite a few questions we didn't have time for. If you can answer any of those electronically, of course, we appreciate it. But great presentation. Thank you so much for being on the event today, Danny.
Yeah. Thank you. Much appreciated.
And, of course, thank you to Rubrik for supporting the MegaCast today. Check out the link there in your audience console in the Handouts tab. That'll take you to the Rubrik Cyber Recovery website. Check that out for additional information. There's a link there to check out the solution brief, try out a demo. They've got the Forward conference coming up in May, so make sure that you check out all those resources. All right, if you haven't answered the poll, I'll leave it up while I announce our next winners on the MegaCast today. The next Amazon gift card, this is going out to Charles Choi from California. Congratulations. And then our first grand prize winner for an iPhone 14, this is going to PJ Selinsky from Arizona. Congratulations. All right. Thanks to everyone who responded there in the poll. Let's keep the MegaCast rolling here. I'm excited now to welcome our next presenter on the MegaCast, and that is Mr. Victor Oliveira, Senior Sales Engineer at Elation. Hey, Victor. Thanks for being on the MegaCast.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for the time today. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, sir. You sound good. Take it away.
All right. Thank you. So appreciate the time. Thanks, everyone, for joining. So the idea today is to talk about Elation. For those of you, maybe some of you have heard already, if you're in the data space, if you're especially in the data catalog, data governance space, Elation is definitely a leader in that space. So we'll be glad to walk you through that process. So to start, I want to start by introducing here what we do as far as a data catalog goes. And when you hear that word, I want you to think of the idea of building a data culture. So if I go back here to this slide, I'll talk about how Alation wants to, first of all, build this empowered, curious, and rational world. And of course, this is a pretty ambitious vision, but the idea behind it is that everyone is trying to build a data culture. And in order to build a data culture, we understand that there's three main pillars that comes into play whenever you're building this data culture. First of all is data access. People need to find and understand the data that they have in your environment. Today, you probably might be in a current situation like this where you have data spread across several systems, several data sources, and people just can find it or understand it. And then there's data literacy, which is once you find that data, you really have people being educated about what it's about, or if you have duplicates, or maybe you should be understanding more about it. And then in the third part of that process is the data governance piece, which is empowering people, stewards, to go back and manage that data in a way that makes sense according to your policies, that are compliant, and they're also secure in your environment. So the way that Alation does this is by building what we call a data catalog. And what a data catalog is, maybe for you, it's your first time hearing about this, is the idea is that we have a centralized place for metadata. So think of this as physical, technical metadata, as well as business metadata. So it's easy for people to search and find data, have governance in that process, and then collaborate once they find that data. People can find tables and understand details about it, and then see lineage on that table, and then a few other details about it. And all of this, Alation does with what we call, if I click here on, there you go. So we're basically answering four core questions here whenever we're talking about a data catalog. First is, how can you find information? And then once your users find it, can you use that? Are there any policies around it? Should you use it? And then how should that data be used? How are your current users using it? So this is what a data catalog can help you. You can find the data and then understand and then see if there are policies around it. So all of this, Alation does it. And this is a slide that I just want to go very briefly. But the idea is that if you look on the top, those blue icons, this is what we're trying to bring to the table. Data governance, privacy, risk, and compliance. At the same time, self-service analytics, so that your users, your business users, and your data scientists can find data. And then also, we help companies transition to the cloud because you can identify what assets do you have, and then you just move the right assets to the cloud. And the way that Alation does this, if you look on the bottom, we have a pretty broad connectivity to several sources across the industry. And then we add this behavioral analysis engine, a behavioral intelligence. And we're going to be talking about this whenever we progress in the presentation. But the idea here is basically that Alation does this in a very simple, clean interface like what you're seeing, just like Google. Think of searching for your data in a very simple, easy way so that your business users can find that quickly. All right, so this is just the start. I would like now to go straight into the product demo. I believe that will be answer more questions you might have, but the idea is a data catalog so that your business users can find information. So if I were to start here, I just need to allow this to share my screen. 1 second, the platform asked me for one more requirement when it comes to doing that. 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. This is exciting. I've never seen Alation in action before. I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience haven't either. So thanks for taking a little extra time to do this. A live
Absolutely.
demo.
Yep, I know. Just 1 second. It asked me for, it's just a max security. Apparently, this is a new platform, and I might not be able to do it right. There you go. Can everyone see my screen?
I see it. Yeah, it looks good.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, hey everyone, this is Alation, right? The idea here is that the users can come in and in a very simple, clear interface, you can find information. And the homepage is the first part of that process. The idea is that you can customize this homepage to whatever you have in your organization. So you can change image, logo, text, and also these links down here. You can have pictures, you can have videos. You can make this as easy as possible for your users to, again, find information. Because the idea is about finding, understanding, and then trusting the data that you have in your environment. So in this case here, I'll just act as if I'm a new data scientist, or maybe I'm a new business user, and I need to find information about my customer segments within my organization. And whenever I search, what Alation does is go across my data sources and my BI tools and maybe some file systems that I have, and see if we have data on customer segments. And the beauty of that is that we're going across several tables, columns, values, schemas, as well as business documentation. So think of business terms, business glossaries, having all that available within a single search. Also BI tools. Think about finding your Tableau and your Power BI dashboards all in a single centralized, simple search interface like this one. And then also you can publish queries. And think about the power of this. You can have subject matter experts publishing queries so that other users can leverage the knowledge of those SQL queries. So then you're breaking those data silos that you might have, and you're creating a crowdsourced, collaborative environment across your data enterprise. But in this case, I'm going to continue to act here as a data scientist, and I'll just walk through searching for a specific dashboard. I want to know if there are specific dashboards for customer segments within my organization. And you can see here that I find Tableau, Power BI, MicroStrategy, several reports that are related to customer segments. And what I'm going to do is click on this specific one, and Alation takes me to a catalog page of this dashboard. The idea here is that you're taking your users to understand more about the data that they just found in a simple search interface. You can see that there's stewards, so you can see who you could reach out to about this dashboard. There's also a quick preview of it. And of course, if you have sensitive information, you might disable this preview, but you get a general understanding of what this dashboard in Tableau is all about. But the idea here is that Alation adds what we call guided navigation now, because you want to guide your users to find the most trustworthy and the most important information. So we do this by these traffic lights. They're very simple. You can see here that we have a deprecation sign, and red means stop. It means that this report is based on an old customer segmentation model, but you can find a new dashboard right here on this link. Basically, now you're taking your users to the most up-to-date, to the most trusted information in a very simple, seamless interface. And when I come in here, you can look at description, you can see if there's stewards for this specific dashboard, you can see a preview of it as well. And then you can have general information about PII. Do we have sensitive information on this dashboard? And a few other things. But another aspect that Alation adds, and I mentioned as one of the pillars to building a data culture, is the governance piece. Once people found this data, can you take them and let them know that there are specific policies attached to this dashboard? And the answer for that is that Alation does this in a very seamless way. You can have policies living inside of the platform, and you can link them right here at the point of consumption while people are trying to use this dashboard. They can see these policies. And this is a very different approach than a regular data governance approach where policies tend to live in separate systems, and users and business users might not find it because it's secluded for just a small group of users. The idea here is how can you bring governance to your end users so they are careful and compliant whenever they're using data. And you can also see here endorsements, so you can trust that this dashboard is up to date. Now, if I go back here on Lineage, and this is a very powerful capability of Alation. Think about this. Your business users, a lot of times, are building a dashboard in Tableau or maybe Power BI, and they want to understand what are the tables underlying the specific dashboard. Can I see that in a simple visual way? This is what Alation is providing right here. And for a data scientist, for example, you can see here that I have 5 tables that are living in my data source. In this case here, you can see that the data source is Snowflake. And these tables are then being leveraged to build everything on the Tableau side and ultimately get to that dashboard. So now you have a visual representation of what is happening inside your environment. And the beauty of that is that you can mitigate risks by coming in here. So if I click on this specific table and deprecate it, let's say that maybe an ETL process failed. And if I deprecate it, now that warning will show up in my lineage. And all I need to do is just do a quick refresh. So let me just go out here and do a quick refresh. And you will see that now my lineage gets impacted. And all the downstream objects now are going to be showing a specific warning that comes from this deprecation. That's the idea here, is that Alation is empowering your users to gain a level of visibility into your data environment that you might not have had before. And again, this lineage is built automatically. What I mean by that is that Alation, once we connect to your data source, as well as your BI tools, we build this lineage automatically. Of course, you can augment it with APIs or manual lineage, but the idea is that a jump start is that you can start with automated lineage like this. So let me just refresh this again so that I can remove the deprecation sign. And then now, what I want to do is just walk back as if, again, I'm that data scientist, and I'm now saving a lot of the time that I would have just trying to find data sets or trying to find data or understand it. Now I can find it in a very easy way. And now I have one more question, which is, can I just see more details on the specific table? And you can do that by clicking on the table, and if I scroll down, I'll be taken to the catalog page of this specific table. So in this case here, what you're seeing, and this is a pretty rich page, and I want to spend some time here because this is where, if you want to walk out today, I would love for you to just remember this portion right here that makes Alation unique. The first step once you find data, and we hear this from across our customers, is that not only we don't know the kind of data we have, but we also don't know who is using it. Alation helps exactly with that. But what you're seeing right here on the right is called top users. Alation is going directly to your data source, pulling information there and tracking who are the top users of this specific table. Think about the power of this. Maybe you're moving to the cloud and you don't know who exactly is going to be impacted if I move this table to the cloud. Now you have that level of visibility with Alation. Alation goes again directly to your data source and tracks this information, who are the top users. And the beauty of this is that you can empower some of these users to be your data stewards, because now you have visibility. Like Christina probably is a subject matter expert on this table because she's been using it for a while. So you can even start a conversation directly with Christina right here, and then just say, hey, are there customers from fiscal year 2023 on this table? And you can have this as a conversation living inside the catalog. So you're creating a crowdsourced collaborative environment where now information is not secluded to specific groups, but now people can see it whenever they come. And these conversations are living assets in the catalog. What I mean by that is that you can search and find these conversations later on if you want, because they're living objects in the catalog now. So the first step that I mentioned is top users, right? This is a level of visibility that Alation provides that is unique to our platform, because now you see who is using your data. But the second part that makes Alation unique also is what we call the automation piece. What you're seeing right here is a little robot that is our machine learning capabilities running on the back end and tracking for these technical terms that you have, specifically for this table that is a pretty technical title. What we're going to do is suggest a business-friendly term like what you're seeing right here. We learn from your own terms, so DMS might mean something else for you, and we're going to learn that. And then Alation suggests titles and information all here in a very simple interface like what you're seeing. Then, of course, you have the traffic lights, and you can have, again, policies attached to this. But Alation also helps when it comes to giving a level of visibility on how people are using the data. For example, you might have queries. You can have subject matter experts publishing queries related to this table so that other people can be leveraging this knowledge. And then you can track information about that query. You can see how many times it's been executed. if this query has been endorsed or not. And then you can then reach out to these users maybe because they built the queries and you can just work from it. Or you can also track how are people filtering the data. It's about learning the behavior. Think of a data scientist coming in and learning how people are filtering this data, understanding maybe how you should be filtering and the amount of times this filter has been applied. And then joins. Think about how should I join this table? Are there other tables that have complementary information that should be coming in and joining? Now you can see how other people are joining this information. So basically what you're seeing here is Alation is giving you a level of visibility into your data environment that you might not have had before. In a very simple, clear interface, I'm seeing how people are using the data, who exactly is using it, and then also you have plenty of automation in the process. But another aspect that Alation also is unique is what we call popularity. So if I go back here to my schema that lives within Snowflake, I can track within this schema, first of all, top users of this data, but I can see all the tables that live within it. And then Alation takes a step further and shows you exactly what are the most popular tables that you have within the schema. And think about the power of this again. Maybe you're in a cloud migration process. You don't want to do a lift and shift approach. You want to know which tables you should be prioritizing. Or maybe it's your data governance team. You want to know which tables you should be tackling first in your data governance project. This is a great way to do that. Alation is showing you what are the most popular tables and which ones are not as popular. So if you want to migrate to the cloud, you're probably going to focus on these ones that are most popular, not these ones, or your data governance project. Same goes for that. This is, again, all about gaining visibility into your data environment. So I know we're coming up to the last few minutes here. So I just want to take a moment and just go back here to my homepage and talk about what we covered so far. What we did here was in a very simple interface. Alation first connected to your data sources. So think of, you might have several data sources, data spread across your enterprise. Alation can connect to all of that and bring the metadata into this easy to find interface like what you're seeing. But then we also connect to file systems. We can also publish queries so that other people can leverage that knowledge. We can have conversations. We can have business intelligence tools. We're connecting to all of that, building trust, and giving you a level of visibility that maybe you didn't have before. That's the whole point, and there's a lot more. If you're curious about Alation, please feel free to ask some questions, as well as if you want to do a follow-up, we'll be glad to do that. But there's quite a few other things that we can talk about, such as how we run analytics inside the platform, or some other tools that we can help you in the process of rolling out a data governance approach. All of this, again, in a simple interface like this one. So that should be it for the demo.
Great presentation.
We just got. Go ahead.
Sorry.
So yeah, I think it's just Q&A right now, right?
That's right. Yeah. If you want to just stop the screen share, I'll bring up the poll for the audience. Really cool demo. I mean, this is so powerful. This could help so many companies out there who just have all this data and they're not quite sure what to do with it. In fact, I think that was one of the questions that came up during the keynote presentation as well. Someone said, can you help us to figure out what to do with all this data? So sounds like this could help a lot of companies. I've just brought up the poll question for everyone out there. The question on the screen is, what additional information would you like to see from Alation? What additional information would you like? Would you like a demo? Would you like to try out the solution for yourself? Learn about other companies who have done this successfully? We do want to get your feedback on that, and I'll leave that up while I take your questions. If you have a question for Victor here at Alation, now's the time to get it in. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. Victor, they're asking, how long does it take to get this up and running?
Well, that's a great question. Usually, so Alation is a tool, again, built for ease of use and quick time to value. So we actually can get it up in hours, but implementation will probably take a few weeks. And that's because I showed a little bit of what we can do with automation. There's a lot more that can be done and roll out the catalog fast. We just connect to a few data sources, start small, and then in the process, we automate how you can roll this out. Yeah, we can have customers that roll out in weeks, and we have programs such as what we call a jumpstart that allow you to start quickly and have a team that work with workshops, implements, and train your users in it.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like it could be super easy, and that's not always the case when you bring in a new solution. So this sounds really powerful. Another question here. This is a good one. Who are typically the main users for Alation?
Yeah, so I walked through the demo as a data scientist, right? But you probably noticed that the interface is made to be easy. So from the ground up, Alation was built for your business users, your data scientists, and of course your data governance team too, because they can come in and just build the platform. But we truly believe that Alation is not a super technical tool only for technical users, because what we've seen is that what makes it successful is that you have a crowdsource, a lot of people seeing value and building the catalog together so that everyone can see value and find data, trust, and understand more about it, right? So usually our business users, data scientists, of course, data governance team, but the idea is to reach as many business users as you can in your enterprise.
Got it. And there's a couple questions out here. I see one from Jennifer and a couple others who are kind of like, how does this compare to X? You know, what makes this different? So what makes this really unique in the market, Victor?
Right. And I think what makes Alation unique, I touched a little bit whenever we went through the demo, right, is that we give a second layer of visibility that other tools cannot provide. You saw top users. That is identifying who are the users that are actually using your data, or what are your most popular tables or assets. This is something that is unique to Alation, because what we believe is that a catalog, if it's just a place where you just have a lot of data or metadata in it, it's not as rich, right? Think of Google Maps as if it was just a place with a bunch of addresses or restaurants. It wouldn't be as rich as what Google Maps offer when it comes to telling you what is the best route to get from point A to point B. This is what makes Google Maps rich, and Alation does that as well, right? With what we call behavioral intelligence. We give you who are the top users, what are the most popular tables, and we guide you, just like Google Maps, the best route for your cloud migration, or maybe to implement your data governance strategy with a different level of visibility that other tools cannot provide.
Yeah, that guidance sounds like the real magic, the secret sauce in the solution.
Yep.
Here's a good question from Chris. He's asking, does Alation help at all to optimize the sources of the data?
Yeah, so one great way to do that is looking at your data with different set of eyes, right? And we've seen this with our customers. A lot of times you might not know what you don't know in your data sources, all right? So what Alation will do is by connecting to it, you can see exactly how your data environment is. If you have some issues with it, such as maybe people might be joining data with tables that maybe are deprecated or have old data and they're not supposed to be doing that. We've seen this with some other companies that sometimes they track and see, oh my goodness, people are using this data set that they're not supposed to. But now Alation allows you to see that because you can track the number of times a specific join was executed, or a future, or along those lines.
Smart. I like that. Another good question, does Alation make more sense for specific industries or for specific size companies like small or large? Or can it be used pretty much at any company that has data challenges?
Oh, great question, right? So yes, any company that has data challenges, right? Mid-size, small size, enterprise level. Actually, we have over 25% of our customers are Fortune 100 companies. So we're in different industries. If you go on our website, you'll see several customer stories. You'll see Fifth Third Bank, Pfizer, quite a few big logos, as well as some mid-sized companies, right? You could be in the financial services industry. You could be in retail. all of that, we understand that data challenges are everywhere, and we see more and more demand for a centralized location like what Alation provides.
Nice. I think we're running out of time here in our Q&A session, I'm afraid, Victor. But the final question I want to ask you is, what should folks do to get started with Alation?
Yeah, so please reach out to us. We have several webinars in our website, as well as people that can reach out to you. We have a team spread across the world that can help you with it. So feel free to reach out, work with us. We'll schedule initial conversations. We have workshops, demos that we can work to get you started and seeing more about the platform. But yeah, we'll be glad to do that in any region that you might be in.
Awesome. Yeah, this sounds like it could help out so many companies. Thank you so much for the great demo.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And of course, thank you to Alation for supporting the event today. Check out the handouts tab there as well for a link to Alation resource. Covers the Alation Cloud service, and you can download that resource and check it out after the event. It's a PDF document. Should be easy to peruse. All right. Thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll question. I will now announce the winner of our next Amazon $300 gift card. This is going out to Cynthia Torsic from California. Cynthia Torsic. And then our next grand prize for another iPhone 14. This is going out to Nerman Seelick from Virginia. Congratulations. We'll reach out to all the prize winners after the event. All right, and with that, it's now time for our next presentation on today's MegaCast. I'm excited now to welcome Matt Minatola, who's the CIO at Elastic. Hey, Matt, it's great to have you on. I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, David. So, hi, everyone. I am Matt Minatola, and I am the CIO at Elastic. I thought this topic was great, and I'm excited to present to you today, as I've been a CIO or a CTO for probably the better part of the past 25 years. And so understanding and having a clear data plan and a strategy in order to enable your business has always been a critical part of our role. But I think in today's world, it's becoming more and more complex, as well as it's becoming more and more important for us as it's starting to have a direct effect on our overall business's abilities to go faster, to deliver the products to our customers, and to create the experiences that we want. And so when I had the opportunity to present, I was pretty excited about it. So I'll spend a couple minutes just going through talking about your data program. And I'm guessing that everyone on this call has a data plan. It's been critical to every one of us as we deliver. And so what I want to do is just kind of walk through why today we may want to revisit some of the things that we've been doing within our overall programs and some of the alternatives that are out there today. If you're on this call, you know that we live in a world that data has been continuing to grow, expand, become more complex. I don't need to share with you the large magnitude numbers, like 80+% of data is non-structured, or the fact that we create more data each year than ever was created in the humankind. But we all live this in an everyday world where our ability to take disparate data structures, data elements, bring them into our business and transform them into information and data that we can use continues to grow, and it's not getting any simpler. Now, we've done a really good job up to this point of solving these problems. This has been a big role for us since the beginning of time. But the way that we've done it historically has been we've solved them in silos. So my guess is you probably have a financial silo of data. You probably have a security operations team that has their data. You probably have an operations team that has their application data. You've probably got a marketing database. You've got all these various data structures and reporting engines that you have across the organization. And then over the last 5 or 10 years, we've started to layer data lakes, and we've started to join this data together, and we've put kind of user access and reporting mechanisms on top of it in order to bridge the fact that we have disparate data underneath the covers. But for the most part, it's worked for us. And we've been able to get the information out to our businesses as they need. It feels good. I would tell you that there's lots of conversations I have with folks, and I would tell you that, there's 3 questions I usually ask folks, right? Do you have a data plan, and is it successful? And everybody is usually very confident when they answer that. And that's because they've done the things that are above kind of the waterline on this slide, which is, we are able to reduce our security risks with the data structures that we built. We're able to enhance our resilience. We're able to create experiences for our customers. We're able to give the information to our fellow employees. And so everybody feels really good when I ask that question and they say, yeah, we've got a data program and yes, it's working. And then I ask them a couple questions that say, are you able to give the information to your business in a timely manner and a manner that is seen by the board or by the business as meeting what it needs to be? And although there's still some confidence, you can start to hear in the answers that confidence starts to wane a bit. And the reality of that is there's a lot of data that we're dealing with. And because of what we've done historically with these closed data stacks or these siloed structures, we've built a complex layer on top of it. And in many times we've layered it 2, 3, and 4 times in order to try to get the information out to the business that they want. And in that, it takes time, it takes money. But more importantly, we many times are having to clean up data or having to bridge data, or many times the data gets to the end goal and it may be in conflict with another piece of data that's been seen across the rest of the organization. So although the answer is yes, we can do it, you kind of start to get a wavering of confidence from the questions. When I ask the third question, it says, as the data steward for your business, are you confident that you're going to be able to handle the increase of data and the complexity that's coming in the next few years within the budgets that are going to be allocated to you? And it's usually in the conversation at that point where people start to, shake their head and say, yeah, no, I don't have a path forward. And so it's very clear that although this strategy has worked for us for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and we've been able to kind of deal with it, there's a lot of things going on within technology and the increase of volume of data that I would propose is going to cause us to stop and rethink some of the things that we've done and some of the approaches that we've taken. And so what I would propose is that we probably need a way to simplify this. We need to figure out where we can get a single place where we can store this data so that we don't have to move it multiple times, or we don't have to bridge it, or we don't have to transform it from point A to B to C to D. And so it's, to me, as you look through your data strategy and your approach, I think one of the really important things that we've got to look at as we look to the next 3-5 years is where in our environment can we begin to simplify a data structure that allows us to start putting data into it that we can have a one single place store and apply all of our business logic and all our monitoring and all of our controls and all of our alerts to that one single place. And what that will do is hopefully that will allow us to start to create that environment that allows us for that unit of data that we put in there to be much faster and much more reliable and really much more cost effective as we move through the things that are coming at us. I think if you're thinking it doesn't impact me, I can't think of an industry where data is not growing. If you're in manufacturing, IoT is going to generate more and more data as we go. If you're in the retail business or you're on an e-tailer, clearly you've got all kind of customer experience capabilities that you need to capture. And so all of that stuff is just going to continue to grow and to put pressure on your ability to deliver what's there. So I think it impacts all of us. What I'd say to you is that I've been at Elastic for about a year. And one of the reasons I came to Elastic after coming out of large scale organizations, global and high volume transaction groups, is that I found it very compelling that there's a platform out there that probably already exists in your shop. I know that in each of the shops that I was at, that I managed, I was part of, every one of them had Elastic somewhere in the stack somewhere. with over 3.6 billion downloads, I'm very confident that if you're on this call, you will probably find that somewhere in your environment you've downloaded, or one of your developers has downloaded it and has embedded it, or is even using it within the environment that you have in order to drive search criteria and or drive consolidation, application data, other things like that. It's a very active open source community, and I think that's a key point that I'd make as you look out for the next 3 to 5 years. There are a lot of great siloed solutions. You've got products that have been targeted to solve a solution or a product. But what's happening is all of this data, whether it's observability data, whether it's security data, whether it's enterprise data, it's all having to come together into an integrated store, because the more you can put that data together and lay the machine learning or the capabilities of analytics on it, you'll be able to have a better solution come out of it. And so having the ability to touch and talk to anyone and not be siloed with a product solution, I think is something that's going to be important to all of us as CIOs or CTOs over the next few years. And as you can see in the stats on the slide in front of us, it is an extremely active development community in the user open source space, and it continues to be. And there's a reason for that, because if you think about it, search is at the core of everything that we've got to do, whether it's whether it's machine learning, whether it's AI. It really comes down to being able to get the data into a place and align it and look at it and analyze it and create information that's there. So Elastic today, I don't know, again, you may be familiar with it, you may not. I know that, again, as I said, I was a user of Elastic, but I wasn't an enterprise user of Elastic because I was mostly in the third column there, which was a build your own. We had taken it out of the open source environments. We embedded it into many of our applications in order to provide and perform the search capabilities that we need, whether it was enterprise search or whether it was in our online customer service environments. And that has historically been where Elastic has and continues to be best in breed. And so that capability still exists. But if you peel back, it's really an engine. If you take it down to a platform, that same engine you can build on top of that engine, applications that are targeted to specific markets or capabilities. And what they've done over the last 3 to 5 years is build 2 stacks that, for the most part, can come out of the box. One that's targeted around security and one that's targeted around observability. And the reasons that those were obviously chosen is because if you think about the volume of log data and application data, and the complexity of having software as a service, multiple cloud providers, partners, applications as a service, the ability for us as owners and stewards of our data within the business to manage and be responsible for that data wherever it is across the globe, across the network, across the web, it's critical for us to understand all of those data points. And so the observability data, the applications monitoring data, the ability to understand what's going on in my environment has been a huge grower of data through all of our environments. And so that was targeted to do that. As far as security goes, I can't imagine that there's a person on the call that doesn't work in a company that doesn't have a dozen to 2 dozen security solutions that they've installed or are in the process of installing in their environment to address the ever-growing complexity and pressures that the security environment is creating on our enterprises. And it's part of the reason why SIEM, as well as XDR, are becoming critical capabilities that need to be built into an environment, because there are so many data points and so many elements and so many places that you've got to kind of match, merge, align, measure, compare, time sequence compared to previous existences to see the patterns that are coming at you. The ability to have a platform that can take that size and scale and take really all of those data elements and store it into a single environment and be able to scale and perform is exactly what's needed in the world. And it's why Elastic over the last, I would say, 3 years has become a top provider in both the SIEM as well as the XDR environment. And in many places is in the upper right-hand quadrant of the Gartner Magic Quadrants, because all of us are struggling to figure out how to take this data and create real-time information on it. And so the ability for these solutions to sit on a single platform with a single language, with a single interface, with a single repository that is able to scale and provide the information to each of these stacks, whether it be your legacy applications or your enterprise search or security or your observability stacks, becomes a pretty valuable thing. And it's where I think the simplification, especially in the operations world, is you have an opportunity to do that. What I'd say is many of our customers are coming to us, especially our larger ones who've been in these businesses for many years, are coming to us with a desire and a drive to simplify and to drive kind of a simpler environment to manage what's happening in these environments. And so I think what makes us different when they come to us is really, I think at the core of it is the ability for us to speed and scale. And what I would tell you is in my experience, even before coming here, and what I'm learning as I am here, is that our ability to speed, to create scale and to deal with the volume of data and provide the information you need at the speed that's needed is unparalleled in anything out in the world. And then to add the fact that I can put all of that data into one place and have a comprehensive ability to manage it, as well as query it and deliver information, really creates for us a real flexible environment, which I think is different than many of the folks who are in the industry who may have a siloed solution and are trying to get to scale, and or are trying to give you connections to other products. Where here, instead of trying to connect products, you look at your data as your data and you store it in one place and then start to deliver the information by silos or deliver that information by solutions to your business. That's a much better approach. I think the other thing as a CIO is, and I don't know how many of you have over the last 6 months, especially if you're in the tech world, have dealt with the fact that we're in a bit of a different market today than we were probably a year ago. Even as recently as a year ago when I got to Elastic, we were very much about go get solutions, bring them in. How fast can I get them in, get them up? Don't really think about what it's going to cost. We got to grow and we got to extend the footprint and and grow our business. And what's changed over the last 6 to 9 months, obviously with the macroeconomics, is we now find ourselves in an environment where we've got almost at times an unsustainable cost structure because we bought siloed solutions. And so whether it's around driving data or not, my guess is you're having a conversation, looking at some of those solutions, seeing where you can consolidate those, where you can begin to leverage and negotiate and come up with lower costs of ownership so that you can drive the costs out, either A, for the short term to get your costs down, but more importantly, specific to the data environment, in order for you to use in the future for all the new data structures and types you're going to need as we move into AI and various other technologies. And so it is important to you as you look at this to basically figure out where you can do a tool consolidation, where you can consolidate your operations and get some efficiencies, and then use that same platform to extend it into multiple places. The last thing I would say is really around the pricing model, right? Again, I think a lot of the products that we have and in our business, all of us, are really tied to license-driven costs. And one of the things I would propose, regardless of where you're at, is really start to change that conversation with your vendors from license costs to use costs. Because as usage goes up, obviously there's value. If there's value, you're willing to pay. But if usage goes down and there's no value, then why should I need to have to pay a 5 to 7% premium each year for less and less value? And what I would say is I think many of us realized that in the last 6 months, that as our markets that were growing 20, 30, 40%, we were willing to grow at 5% or 7% annually, saw those growth rates come down. And yet those conversations still started off with the same amount of increase for those licenses. And so I think we as leaders, CIOs especially, have an obligation to the business to start to pivot over the next 3 to 5 years, from a license base to a usage. And the thing I would say around data is it's probably the most important place to do that because you're going to want to tie all of your data into one repository. and you're going to want to give access to everyone and partners and anybody that touches it. As a matter of fact, you may even want to give access to that data to your customers as you go forward. And that becomes a pretty non-compelling business model if I have to pay more and more for the people who touch it. Whereas if I can tie it to the usage of the data and what's consumed, it allows me then to make business decisions based off the value that that data is given either my business or my customers. And then we haven't really talked a lot about it, but again, the consistency with one product, with one stack, with one interface, with one SQL world, with one interface to manage these things. It just simplifies everything. And it comes back to my opening statement that says in today's world, we've really got to look to where we can simplify our environments. And so I think that, the conversation today is around driving the speed of accelerating my business for tomorrow. But really, again, think about what you're doing around your data, not so much for the siloed solution or the business use case, but can you find and build a platform that allows it to scale, that allows it to drive speed, that allows it to be used in multiple places so that you can drive information from that single source of truth and drive the reliability of the data, where you can store that data once and start to make sure that those use cases are consistent. And so your reliability is there. And as you look to start to do things like time series or look to go back and do comparisons in time, you don't have to load multiple cases, multiple environments and drive that piece up, which will drive both cost and slow performance. And then most importantly, once I start to put all this data together, if you really think about where our businesses are going, we are really looking to make sure that we can see that data and make a decision based off that copy of data. And so allowing your organization to see that and see the data all integrated, whether that's the finance team or the marketing team or the operations team or the security teams, that starts to then unlock some insights that are going to allow you to drive both operational improvements as well as customer experiences. And so, again, I just would kind of close on this one a bit, which says, there's an opportunity for us to basically drive, simplicity by finding a common platform. And what I'd say is you really want to look through what you've got installed today and look for those opportunities where you can reduce the security, where you can enhance the resilience, where you can create the customer experience. And if you have an opportunity to bring those things together into an integrated world, then this thing that we've been doing for 15, 20 years, which is managing data, that is really the unlocking of what we've done for 15, 20 years. That is going to be what's going to unlock our ability to drive our businesses and what they need to do in the next 3 to 5 years. So why is it different today? I'll kind of summarize it up. The data volumes are not going to get smaller. They're going to actually get even exponentially even more. And so making sure that your data strategy and your data approach has at its core the ability to deal with scale and volume and performance is absolutely got to be number one on your list. Number two, every piece of data that you have is going to come under attack. Whether it's under attack today or won't be, it's going to come under attack. So why not have an environment that has integrated with it the same security monitoring and detection capabilities that an out-of-the-box security system would have? You now have a platform that you can layer those capabilities on and have the confidence that as you bring not just your security data in, but your customer data, or your operations data, or your applications or performance data, you know that security environment is there because it was built with a security platform in mind. Third, I think what makes it important is our surface map is only going to get worse. I think, we have multiple clouds. We used to talk about which cloud provider you're on. Now we're in multiple clouds. You're going to have multiple clouds. You're going to have multiple providers. You're going to have multiple applications. You're going to have multiple vendors. You're going to have multiple partners. We're going to continue to do business in a manner that allows us to be as easy to use for our customers and where we can plug into a value chain. And technology is going to continue to allow us to plug that in easier and easier. And that's great. But as stewards of our customer information, whether it's PII or other things, we need to know where everything is, why it is, and make sure that it's secure. And as that surface maps grows of people and usage, or as that data is traveling around the globe in multiple data centers across global networks, multiple applications in and out, every minute of the day, it's more and more a reason why we've got to make sure that we can manage it and understand it. The fourth one is I talked about, which is really around the economic times. I think we find ourselves in a downturn. We hadn't been in one for a while, and we got kind of aggressive. All of us have, and kind of continue to grow and try to get to market and grow our footprint. But these times make us realize that we've got to do that with an ability to be able to manage the cost going forward. And so this is a great time for us to take that opportunity, revisit what we've done, and figure out where can I jump on a different cost trajectory and a scale and a performance trajectory that will allow me to grow that over the next 3 to 5 years. So the next time this comes in 3, 5, 7, 9 years, I'm in a better place. And then the last one I would tell you is it's all about enabling tomorrow. And I can't get into a conversation in today's world that doesn't talk about AI, that talks about AI or large language, kind of models and things like that. And we all know where this ends up. But what drives all of that is data. And what drives that data is the ability to have it in a single place that allows us to drive decisions. We've done a great job of doing that today in silos, but it's going to need to be brought together in order to make those decisions across my end-to-end business. And I think it's going to be very important for you and I and everybody over the next 3 to 5 years to make sure that that environment is open, because it's going to be okay to kind of scale in a silo and have a one-off and a two-off. But in order to create that large language learning, that decision tree, it's going to be really important to be able to plug into anywhere, anytime, and anyone's data. And if you bake that into your DNA of your data platform today, it's only going to allow you to scale and grow and perform in the next few years. So with that, David, I will turn that back over to you and see if you have any questions or if there's any questions out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation, Matt. We got a lot of great questions coming in from the audience. If you have a question for Matt and the Elastic team, now's the time to get it in. I'm just going to go ahead and start with this question here. They say, so Elastic is the company behind Elasticsearch. I thought Elasticsearch was just for searching logs, and it seems like you're saying there's a lot more to it. What am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think your point is that it can do a lot more. It is a platform. Again, if you think about what was required in a search platform, it was, if you think about the components, it's the ability to ingest data. And when you ingest data in order to do a search, you have to be able to ingest data of multiple types. And so now all of a sudden you built out that capability in that platform to take on just hundreds of connections. And the fact that it's open source, you then get the community building capability or plugins that allow you to kind of bring more and more data. So the fact that we started with search and everyone wanted to search their data, it created this capability that now allows you to bring all kind of data, structured, unstructured, et cetera, into it. The Elk Stack's been out there forever. So obviously you've got the ability to plug in. But the other thing you have now is you have the Kibana kind of the overlay that gives you a single interface that now sits on all that stuff. So yes, you're right, it's for search, but it's pretty easy to then align that for an application like security and security monitoring or application logs. But application logs become application monitoring. And there's no reason to have a logging tool and a monitoring tool and a security tool and an analytics tool. It all becomes one once you got the data. And that's I think the piece that Elastic has grown into over the last 5 years and continues to grow into it over the next 3 or 5 as well.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. That's an important point. Let's see. Here's another good question. They say, speaking of security, you mentioned Elastic can be used for observability, but how does it work for security? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, listen, we've got customers all over the place who have multiple products that they've implemented over the last years. And it's becoming more and more difficult for them in order to be able to put the patterns together for that. And when you think about extended detection and response, it's the ability to take those components that are out across your network, whether it's hardware, software, applications embedded, and bring that data together. Elastic has done a great job of growing their business to provide those extended data drivers, as well as creating open systems to take other data drivers from products that are out in the marketplace to bring them in. It's why they've kind of, if you watched over the last 2 or 3 years, it's why you're seeing them move through the Gartner Magic Quadrants up from kind of the middle up to the upper right. Because if you think about what event management is, it's really the ability to get the events into a place and then glue them together, search them, again, using the concept of what's core to the business, and then report on them. And the fact that you got these out of the box kind of connections and solutions allows it to kind of do that stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. And when we talk about data, we always get a question about AI. This person wants to know, is Elastic playing in the AI space? Doesn't technology like ChatGPT make search less necessary? Like, couldn't I just ask ChatGPT what's wrong with my application performance? Is that true or no?
Yeah, listen, I like it and I smile as I answer this. And the answer is you absolutely someday are going to be able to ask that. But if you peel back what's going to happen when you ask that question, there is no magic. I've been in this business for a long time, and the one thing I learned early is there is no magic. So when you think about it, in order to ask that question, what do you think has to happen? What has to happen is you have to have your data that has been kind of brought into one integrated place and been able to been analyzed and created kind of that next layer of synthetic data in order to present the information to be able to then answer that question. At its core, that is what Elastic is doing at the machine learning level today. And so what I would expect is, again, whether it's Elastic or someone else, as you look at your data strategy, make sure you have that end in mind so that you don't have all these siloed solutions, that when that question gets asked and someone can layer a very high level learning capability on it, that you then have to traverse the world in order to get that answer. One, I think the infrastructure to do that will be extremely expensive and you won't be able to maintain it. By going with Elastic at this point, you've already started to build that repository. Again, we talked about it at the beginning. It is by far, it's unmatched on its scale and performance today in the market. So start with the one that's going to have the best performance, allow the data to get there, start to build. We've already built in the machine learning, the vector models, all that stuff is built in today when you get those out of the box with a lot of these, whether it's the security or the observability, that machine learning is there. That's the machine learning and the analytics that's going to get glued together in order to then create the AI solutions that are going to come tomorrow.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm afraid we're running out of time here in our live Q&A segment. Last question I want to ask you, Matt, is what should folks do to get started with Elastic?
Yeah, listen, Elastic's really easy to get started. You can go out to elastic.co and you can get logged in. You can actually spin up an environment really easy. You can literally log on and spin one up and start day one. And if you get on the website, you'll be able to find all kind of things, and we'll be more than happy to help you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, Matt, for your presentation.
All right. I just brought up the poll question for everyone out there. What additional information would you like about the Elastic solution? We do want to get your feedback on this poll. I love how Matt talked about you can go out and try the solution out for yourself at elastic.co. If you're going to do that, check the box right there. You'd like to try it out for yourself, or if you'd like your own personal guided demo, check the box there as well. We do want to get you the information that you need to take the next step on these solutions. And of course, thank you to all the great questions that have come in. We didn't get time with Matt for all these questions, but we'll do our best to get back to everyone electronically. All right, I'll leave the poll question up for everyone to respond to while I announce our next set of prize winners. We've got another Amazon $300 gift card. This is going to Pierre St. Fleur from New Jersey. Congratulations, Pierre St. Fleur. And then our third grand prize, 3rd out of 4, for another iPhone 14 Plus. I don't even have one of these yet. I need to get one. Hopefully I can win one, but I'm not eligible. This one's going to Scott Cole from Louisiana. Congratulations, Scott Cole from Louisiana. We've still got one more gift card and one more grand prize to give out after our next presentation, so stay tuned. All right. Thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll. I'll give you 5 more seconds for anyone who hasn't responded yet, and then we'll move on to our next presentation. Excellent. All right. Thank you to everyone who responded. Let's keep the MegaCast rolling.
I'm excited to welcome Chris Mabardi, Senior Director for Product Marketing, and Sean Stoth, Director for Auto ML Solutions, both from Click. Chris and Sean, it's great to have you on. I'll first hand it off to you, Chris. Take it away.
Hello and welcome to this session, Click Auto ML, Machine Learning for Analytics Teams. My name is Chris Mabardi. I'm a Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Click, and I'm joined today by Sean Stoth, who's our Director of Auto ML Solutions. In this session, we're going to take you through our overall AI strategy and then how we're using machine learning to really move what was traditionally historical analytics to predictive and prescriptive. Before we get going here, just a quick legal disclaimer. This basically says that anything that might be stated in this presentation that's forward-looking in any way is subject to change at our discretion. So the first question we have to ask ourselves here is, what's the goal of using AI in analytics? And it's really very simple. It's about helping all users reach their full potential with data. So this means, a couple different things. It means deepening insight, so driving deeper insights, and this can be things like advanced and predictive analytics. Broadening access really means the idea of productizing data literacy, building data literacy directly into product capabilities so you can help those less sophisticated users. And then driving efficiency is really around shortening that time to value. So offering assistance with traditionally manual processes such as, authoring, creating ML experiments, which is what we're going to talk about in this session, data prep, etc. And so what we do at Click, we offer a fully integrated set of AI capabilities. And this is a full suite of features working together to drive really a unique value proposition. So with AI and Auto ML really built into our foundation, we can cross-pollinate these, surfacing ML capabilities within ClickSense in our augmented analytics, as well as utilizing ClickSense analytics in our Auto ML workflows. We also bring in advanced analytics integration, which allows you to integrate any third-party data science directly into our Click dashboard. So it's about this ability to really use AI and ML to surface capabilities across the entire life cycle. So the next question here is, what is machine learning? Machine learning, put simply, is a branch of AI in which you can recognize patterns and drivers in historical data to build models that can then predict future outcomes. And Auto ML is the process of automating this process. So this has been traditionally very time-consuming and iterative and manual, and it's been performed by data scientists who are more experts in the development of these models. Auto ML really allows your business analysts and analytics teams to apply the same principles in a more simple and effective way to drive tremendous value in more everyday problems. And the application of this can really span across all your different business lines. It goes across all industries. And it serves a wide variety of predictive needs. So if you think about all the traditional historical analytics apps folks have in organizations, most of those can benefit from having predictive and prescriptive insight. This could be things like sales forecasting, customer retention, customer lifetime value, inventory optimization, etc. The breadth and depth of this and the potential for this is really extensive. But the important thing to realize is that if you had 100 potential use cases in an organization, you pretty much only see data scientists really handling maybe the top 10. And what I mean by the top 10 is the most complex. But what happens to all the other potential use cases? This is really where Auto ML comes in. It brings the power of predictive and prescriptive analytics to the other 90%, these more everyday use cases. They may be lower complexity and lower risk, but they usually have tremendous upside. So this gives organizations the ability to federate this predictive analytics capability to handle those additional use cases. And with AutoML, you can really up-level the value of your analytics. This is an example, and this is just about sales forecasting. So one of the simple yet very high-value use cases that we see. We typically have applications in the analytics world that look at historical data. So you can, have your analytics and you can determine things like which sales opportunities did I win, which did I lose, what was our close rate, and then you sort of infer how to act in the future based on your learnings. But with machine learning, you can take that much further. So you can actually build models that make predictions. So you can see with your current sales pipeline, which opportunities am I likely to win, which am I likely to lose, what will my close rates be, and you can project that out. And then furthermore, with explainability, you can see for each of those opportunities, what are the key factors driving this outcome? So what can I do to maximize the potential of winning or losing any given deal? And overall, in general, how can we take action to drive more revenue? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Stouth, who's going to take you through this process now in a demo.
Well, thank you, Chris, and a great overview of the AutoML capabilities. So I'm Sean Stouth, and today I'm going to walk through AutoML in more detail and provide a day in the life of a business analyst or a data science building AutoML-powered predictive analytics applications. So our journey starts in the Click Analytics Hub, and as Chris outlined, Click AutoML is embedded directly into the Click Analytics workflow. And this seamless experience makes it simple and easy to augment existing analytics with predictive insights, all powered by our machine learning engine. So business analysts and data scientists familiar with Click can then build powerful ML models and deploy those models into applications, dashboards, alerts, and even via an API, all without leaving the Click Analytics workflow. We have a distributed compute engine that's always on and available to find patterns in large data sets and execute real-time predictions or scheduled batch processes. And what this enables is a simple way of deploying models and achieving that, what we call that last mile delivery of results, often the hardest and frankly the biggest failure point in all of machine learning, in a very simple and robust way. Okay, so today I'm going to walk through a simple example of building a model with AutoML. So to start, we simply click on this Add New button and select Machine Learning Experiment, ML Experiment right here. And so from here, we can name the experiment. And so the first step in the process is to select a historical data set that we'd like to learn more about. We simply select the data set from the data catalog. All the data is in the data catalog. And here we have a flat table that brings together all the components that make up our machine learning problem. Today, we are trying to solve and better understand what is driving customer churn. And this not only includes which customers are likely to churn in the future, but as you'll see shortly, why those customers are likely to churn and what historically has been contributing to either high or low retention among current and past customers. So our target today is one of 3 core problem types that Click AutoML can quickly build a model for. This one is binary, or 2 possible outcomes such as yes or no, or true or false, followed by multi-class or categorical, where there are more than 2 possible outcomes. And finally, there's regression, or numerical targets on a continuous scale. Examples include lifetime value or sales and demand forecasting. So the data set we'll use today is aggregated at the customer level. The data set also provides a complete picture of relevant information across the customer journey, such as the plan type a customer is on or how much they paid for the plan, aggregated usage on service metrics, and of course our target here, will this customer churn within the next 60 days, yes or no? So by selecting the target on the left, we've told AutoML what type of use case we're trying to solve for. And AutoML will begin taking a series of steps to best prepare our data set for model training. So for example, we can see 2 columns that are automatically excluded from our experiment. One for high cardinality because it contains too many uniques, and another that was constant throughout the data set. And then over on the configuration panel on the right, we can expand sections to learn more about the time-saving steps that AutoML has taken for us automatically. Click here has a whole library of the leading machine learning algorithms, and you can see here that it's automatically pulled in the most appropriate for this problem type. And we can select which ones we want to use, but you know what? It's just better to run them all. We can take advantage of the distributed compute environment and click just to run all the algorithms in parallel to see which ones work best. Another thing I'll call out here is hyperparameter optimization to fine-tune algorithms. We can use our compute cluster to run random and grid searches to find the right hyperparameters for each algorithm. And then lastly, we take care of the best pre-processing steps for you so you don't have to. These are best practice pre-processing steps, such as like the normalization of data and 5-fold cross-validation. And this ensures that we're not overfitting, but what we're trying to do is find the general patterns in the data. Okay, all right, so this all looks good. Let's run this experiment. All very simple. So here you'll see Click work through the previously reviewed pre-processing steps and move into training the algorithms that were selected with our experiment configuration. The results will be completed, and once all the algorithms have been trained, we'll see a recommendation made by the platform indicated by this trophy icon in the table. This recommendation is based on the F1 score for classification, or R squared, for regression models. And we can also explore additional model metrics by selecting the respective columns in our model metrics table. And then looking down here, the first two charts we'll see give us an insight into model feature importance. The first chart, or permutation importance, indicates how much model relies on a particular feature overall. And the second, SHAP importance, is calculated at the row level and provides row level importance into how each prediction is made. This chart here, these are just aggregations of these row level explainability metrics. We also see a ROC curve and a confusion matrix to help interpret how well the model is able to distinguish between our two classes, as well as what prediction, distribution, and accuracy look like when applied to our holdout data set. So as I mentioned, data science and machine learning are very iterative, and as we look to refine and develop the right data set in the model. And so Click makes this fast so you don't have to waste time. We see here by looking at permutation importance that one feature is dominant. This is called a leaky feature, meaning that it might be too highly correlated or actually linked directly to the target variable. We can quickly exclude this feature from the training data set and create a new version of the model. And Click saves all the model versions and experiments and even helps with naming conventions. This enables easy to understand model management and history. So as you experiment, build, and refine models over time, our model management framework makes it simple and easy to save and use all your work. Okay, so now we have version 2, and this one looks better. So looking at the feature important metrics, we see a more clear picture of the drivers. And so by just clicking a few buttons, we're able to deploy our model into the Click Cloud Hub. So again, this is the second part of the process. We've trained the model, now we're deploying the model to get real-time predictions. And we also have a hosted API endpoint for the real time that might be integrated anywhere. Okay, so with these predicted data sets added to our Click Cloud Data Catalog, we may quickly add them to an existing data model and begin building apps with integrated predictions and prescriptive insights. So as an example of a few insights we may glean from this new data provided by AutoML, we may create scatter plots of the SHAP values or the row level interpretation in the data set. If we think back to our feature importance from the chart earlier, we remember that plan type and base fee were two of our top features, but it didn't tell us which plans or base fee amounts were drivers of high or low retention. So we can use the SHAP values to quickly see that the red plan here, check this out. So the red plan is a significant driver of churn. And similarly, looking at pricing, we can identify base fees, let's see here, around $37. Everywhere after this point looks to be a significant increased risk of churn. So look, so this is deep insights into price sensitivity. We may also embed the ability to interact with the model directly into our new or existing apps. As we look through a list of accounts, we can see that one has now been scored as elevated risk of churn, set by a threshold automatically based on the algorithm. We may select this account and get a breakdown from the model of why exactly it scored the risk of churn as it did. We see that the number one factor increasing the risk of churn here is the plan type. So now we can move to the right and begin interacting in real time to run what if scenarios. These what if scenarios are awesome. So what if scenarios on certain changes would affect the prediction. So as we change the plan type to the blue plan, let's try this, we see a new prediction return in real time, telling us that the change would result in significant reduction in the likelihood to churn. And then finally, we can go further. Look, we can use the same real-time integration with the Click AutoML engine to power visualizations in our app. So this heat map, the heat map shown here helps us find the optimal combination of plan type and base fee adjustments to reduce the risk of churn and still leave room for revenue growth. And just like on the previous page, we can make changes in real time and see predictions and simulations to help us understand which best course of action to take. Okay, so this kind of wraps up the demo. And again, this was just an example showing how users can quickly and iteratively build and deploy powerful predictive applications and models. And again, while we used the churn example here, our customers are building powerful predictive models for a incredibly wide variety of use cases, such as in sales and marketing, manufacturing, operations, and more. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to Chris, and I look forward to hearing your questions at the end.
Thanks, Sean. That was a really great demo. One thing to note is that you can build all different types of analytics applications with the predictive information that you get from the AutoML process. So Click AutoML is part of our overall platform, and that's really what makes it highly differentiated. It's targeted at analytics users and teams, but it's fully integrated into Click Cloud, so you get that end-to-end value. This includes things like robust multi-source data combination, taking advantage of the power of our unique analytics engine, our associative engine. This includes fast iterative tuning of models with unlimited experimentation, so you can experiment as much as you want without any sort of penalty on the financial side. You get your predictions with that full explainability data, like I mentioned. So these are the SHAP values that give you not just what might happen, but also why it might happen, so you can take action. Very unique capability for an AutoML product. You get associative exploration driven by our engine. So this is the ability to really perform free-form nonlinear exploration on that predictive data and test those what-if scenarios with that real-time calculation capability. So very powerful stuff on the exploratory side. And then action-oriented capabilities, so triggering alerts, automations, things like reports and workflows, anything you want to do to directly trigger the action based on that predictive insight. And finally, it's really purpose-built to simplify the machine learning process. So unlike other products that are more oriented towards experts and data scientists, this is really built for analytics users and teams. So it allows you to handle all these use cases that may not be part of your data science team effort, but are still very, very valuable. And so here's a really great example of that. This is a U.S. Regional hospital system. And they took the power of Click AutoML and applied it to, again, something very simple but hugely important, appointment cancellations. So they wanted to better predict who was going to cancel their appointment or not show up for their appointment. And they built an ML model to do that. We're able to predict which patients were the most likely to no-show, reach out to them with alternatives to make it easier to get in. And they actually reduced their cancellation and no-show rates by 5 to 10%, driving $6 million in savings in year one. So this is something that, again, it's not highly complex data science. It's very low risk, very high upside, and it equates to tremendous value. So the point here is there's all sorts of this type of low-hanging fruit out there in analytics that companies can leverage the power of AutoML to really drive tremendous value. And complexity does not equal value. You can have very simple use cases that drive incredible results. And with this, you can serve all your users. You can get the data to all the users that you need to make the best decision using augmented analytics. So whether or not you're a business user looking to make decisions, an analyst using this to handle more everyday use cases, or your data scientist handling those high complexity problems, we can deliver those analytics in the best way. The right capabilities to help the right users reach their full potential with data. So with that, we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Great presentation, Chris. Yeah, let's kick off the Q&A here. We've got a lot of great questions coming in. If you have a question for the team here at Click, I encourage everyone to post your question now. The first question I see here in the queue, they're asking, what are the common use cases that you're seeing out there? Sean?
Thanks, David. Actually, that is a super common question. We get that often from a lot of our customers. And the great news is that because we're talking to so many different customers across different industries, we typically see a variety of use cases in domains and different domains and business functions. And so this typically includes sales, marketing, finance, ops, and more. For example, in sales, there are really good use cases in pipeline forecasting, customer churn. In marketing, it's often about customer lifetime value or next best offer. On operation, it tends to be on things like capacity allocation and workforce and demand prediction. And also, supply chain is huge. There's lots of customers with things like inventory stockout predictions, supply chain bottlenecks, and more. There is a common theme in all of these use cases across our customers. They tend to be less complex than typical data science use cases and more like a traditional analytics use case. So basically, they're just enhancing their analytics with predictive and prescriptive insights.
Got it. Excellent. Yeah, a lot of use cases out there. Chris, next question for you. What's the data preparation process for AutoML?
Yeah, so another great question. And that's actually some of the heaviest lifting you'll have to do. So in short, what you need to do is create an ML ready data set, consisting of the necessary data that you're going to need to do the predictive analytics. This often comes together from a number of different sources and really requires a little bit of data engineering to architect, so that the ML algorithms can find those consistent patterns and what we call signal in the data. And it is the most time-consuming part of the process, and it does require some level of knowledge and understanding, but it's not rocket scientists. You can certainly do it as an analytics user, especially if you're experienced with data prep for analytics. So, with Click, we really have an advantage because we have our unique analytics engine and our data prep capabilities to bring together data sources and to really do that with ease, transform data, and create those ML-ready data sets. We have a number of resources available, online training, services, things to help you get started with that. So we'd encourage you to reach out to our team.
Excellent. Yeah. And then here's kind of a follow-up question for you, Chris. They're asking, can my data scientists use this?
So kind of a tricky question. While they certainly can, the tool's not really intended for them. I think, throughout the course of this presentation, we've done probably overemphasize the idea that this is for analytics teams, and it might be a little bit too basic for a professional data scientist. They tend to build more complex models using more customizable and manual tools and development platforms. But what's really important is that they can continue to use what they use and build what they build. And because of the way we integrate, we can integrate with those models and those engines in the same way that we do with our own AutoML and deliver not only data in our dashboards, but real-time calculations. So as the user goes through and makes selections, we'll actually pass a small subset of data to the data science engine itself, get back some new calculations and visualize those for the user in real time. It's a really nice way of integrating, and it allows the user as a business user to really ask their own questions of the data science model. So whether or not you're using AutoML for everyday problems or you're using calculations from data scientists, we can deliver it in our dashboards.
Excellent. I like that. I like to hear that. I think we're starting to run out of time here in our live Q&A session. So the final question goes to you, Sean. What should people do to get started with Click?
Yeah, so make this quick, and we actually try to make it really simple. There are a lot of different ways to get started. Maybe the best for those not familiar with Click is just to go to click.com and set up an account. You can sign up on the website for a free trial for SaaS, and that also includes the AutoML capability. It provides full functionality of the platform, and it's a good way of getting started to get insights on your own data sets. We really like it when our customers are able to bring their own data, put it in the platform, find some new things, and just see how easy and simple it is to find patterns that they've never found before. And lastly, you can always reach out to our sales or our solutions experts to help guide you on this process, as we are always happy to answer questions that you have. And also, as Chris said, there's a lot of training and education material and documentation. And there's also a full community portal, a community page that has lots of really good information on that as well.
All right, this has been great. Thank you to Click for supporting the MegaCast today. And of course, thank you to our experts from Click, Sean and Chris.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
And with that, let me bring up our poll question because we want to get your feedback.
All right, I hope everyone sees the poll on the screen right now that says, what additional information would you like about the Click solution? We got a lot of great questions coming in for the Click team here. If you have a question, now's the time to get it in. If not, just answer the poll. We appreciate your feedback there on the poll. I saw a number of you have said, well, what about this? Can I do this? Can I do that? I think the best option there is to check the box that says you'd like a personal demo, and you can, ask all the questions you want there in your own personal demo. So I'll leave that up while I announce the final prize on today's MegaCast. Let's see, we've got another Amazon $300 gift card. This one going to Wade Mayer from Illinois. Congratulations. And our final grand prize for an Apple iPhone 14 Plus. This one's going to Stanley Underwood from Kansas. Congratulations to all the prize winners on the MegaCast today. We'll also be contacting our best question prize winners as well after the MegaCast. So thank you for all the great questions. And of course, thank you to everyone who responded to the poll there. There's also a Click handout in the Handouts tab. It is a data sheet on Click AutoML, machine learning for your analytics team. Make sure that you download that PDF as well as the other resources there in the Handouts tab before you go. They won't be as readily accessible here after the event. All right. Thank you for all the poll responses. Before we wrap it up, I want to remind you to check out ransomware.org for all the latest details on ransomware and how to prevent it and how to recover from it. You can find a link to that right there in the Handouts tab. If you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming event here at Actual Tech Media, you'd like to present on an EcoCast or MegaCast, reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. We have tons of upcoming events over on our website, events.actualtechmedia.com. And speaking of upcoming events, I want to encourage everyone to join us on Wednesday, March 22nd for our next event. It's a super summit. Hey, wait, that's tomorrow. It's the Ransomware Spectrum, Securing People, Technology, and Data. This is going to be an Enterprise IT Super Summit event with Rapid7, Rubrik, and Veeam. Make sure you join us then. We look forward to having you. And with that, big thank you to everyone out there in the Actual Tech Media audience. I hope that you enjoyed the event today. I hope that you learned a lot. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.